know that. Seth Rollins is very gifted with speed and technical wrestling ability, but I mean, Brock Lesnar would murder him in a one-on-one match. Can you imagine Brock Lesnar and Seth Rollins in, say, the Octagon? And what Brock Lesnar would do to Seth Rollins? I mean, if Brock Lesnar could kill someone like Seth Rollins and get away with it, Brock Lesnar would do it. But legally, he can't do that in professional wrestling. But if he could, he definitely would. He'd rip someone like Seth Rollins limb from limb. So Seth Rollins believing he's the future of professional wrestling, even MMA, if he wanted to go that far, is absolutely ridiculous. It's a delusional statement, and I don't think there's any need of Seth Rollins being put over in the way that he's being put over. The reason why he's champion is because the son of a bitch got lucky enough at WrestleMania to cash in the briefcase and win and escape with the championship. It's not because the son of a bitch deserves to be in the position that he's in. It's because the son of a bitch is just in the position he's in because there's nobody else to put in that same position, because you don't have names that you had probably 3 or 4 years ago, or names that are ready to be in the position of a Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins is just nothing more than an excuse, and the son of a bitch is just lucky to be in the position he's in the professional wrestling business. The question I have for Mr. Rollins is, how long does he think this 15 minutes of fame, for say, is actually going to last? Because I don't see this 15 minutes of fame lasting even the equivalent of 15 minutes. I see it lasting probably 5 of those 15 minutes. It's going to last until WWE realize the potential with Seth Rollins is out the window. It doesn't exist anymore. And we have names like Neville and the Lucha Dragons coming up in WWE who deserve a chance. And without them getting a chance, people like Seth Rollins will always remain on top. And with someone like Seth Rollins always on top, people like the Lucha Dragons and Neville aren't getting a chance. The best match technically, from a technical wrestling standpoint, that Seth Rollins has had since being champion is that exhibition match he had with Neville on Monday Night Raw, putting over Seth Rollins as champion. They went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you were to look up the definition of pure wrestling for that week in the fallout of WrestleMania 31, that match between Seth Rollins and Neville is it. That match definitely had it, and that definitely showcased how far Neville is going to go in WWE, hence the reason why John Cena was preaching about him week after week and talking about so many phenomenal NXT superstars like Sami Zayn and Adrian Neville, who had so much potential, who were never given the opportunity to be in WWE and showcase their talent because of Seth Rollins always making sure that they were put on the proverbial back burner, because Triple H believes out of his ass that Seth Rollins is the future of this company. And, I really hate that the WWE has gone in this direction with so many wrestlers never being given the benefit of the doubt. Recently, I talked about the killing of Dolph Ziggler's push, what happened to Wade Barrett's push for columns for In This Corner with Jonathan Clarke. I am really regretful to have to say that, because this is what it is. In professional wrestling, it's the same 2 or 3 wrestlers having to carry the responsibility of the show. If it's not John Cena and Randy Orton, it's Triple H playing favorites with people like Seth Rollins, which there's no need of having done. People like Seth Rollins and Randy Orton, which is absolutely ridiculous. It's either that, or it's the same challengers all the time for the champions. It's the same 3 or 4 champions and the same 3 or 4 challengers with nobody else being given an opportunity. And if it's not the same 3 or 4 challengers and 3 or 4 champions, it's the same 3 or 4 matches week in and week out, especially on Monday Night Raw Super Shows, because the shows are done live. They don't want to have anybody getting injured on shows, so they don't put ridiculously talented wrestlers in the ring against one another on live shows, because they don't want to have to showcase the injuries that could happen in a match, say, with the Lucha Dragons and Neville teaming up with an NXT superstar like Sami Zayn. They don't want to put wrestlers in the ring who could easily get injured because of their move arsenal, so they have the same 3 or 4 matches happening all the time. The kayfabe, certain issues they are concerned about with professional wrestling. Where the concern lies is where we are headed as wrestling fans, as creative teams in professional wrestling, because nobody, in my opinion, at this point knows where they're headed. The next major event is SummerSlam, and I shudder to think what kind of position, what kind of precarious position and predicament the wrestling business is going to be in by the time we get to our next major pay-per-view on the calendar, which is SummerSlam, which is going to be taking place, for those of you keeping track, in New York, New Jersey, which is a very hard-to-get wrestling audience. A very hard-to-get wrestling audience by the means of a Philadelphia crowd. They very closely resemble that Philadelphia crowd, and they are not afraid to let you know what their opinion is. And if they have an opinion about a certain wrestler, a certain performer, a certain wrestling angle, for say, they're not going to shudder away or shy away from telling you how they really feel. They are the closest resemblance to a Philadelphia crowd you're going to get. And in my opinion, WWE should be concerned about its stake going into an event like SummerSlam, with 3 or 4 pay-per-views separating them from a night where the WWE fans are going to be all over them because they know what wrestling is, and they're not going to shy away or shut themselves out from letting WWE creative know how they really feel about a wrestling angle or a certain individual. So either Seth Rollins has to up his game, or he needs to seriously consider retiring and definitely forfeiting the belt, because going to an event like SummerSlam from the venue SummerSlam is taking place in New York, New Jersey, that is dangerous territory for a champion like Seth Rollins to venture into, which is why I see Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins, if it's going to happen, happening there, happening at SummerSlam with how crazy the crowd is. And believe me, if Brock Lesnar loses on that night to Seth Rollins at SummerSlam, if it happens in New York, New Jersey, then the fans are going to riot. They're going to riot probably even worse if CM Punk didn't win the title in Chicago, or if The Rock didn't beat John Cena in Miami back at WrestleMania 28, because it will happen. New York, New Jersey, the closest resemblance to a Philadelphia crowd you're ever going to fucking get. It is ridiculous how responsive certain crowds are in places like Canada and the UK, and I really have a lot of respect for fans in Canada and the UK, which is why I wish that WWE was in Canada and the UK once at least every 2 to 3 weeks, because if WWE were in Canada and the UK once every 2 to 3 weeks, then shit like Seth Rollins being champion all the time would not happen, because the ratings would be down, nobody would watch the fucking show, nobody would purchase the tickets, nobody would buy the pay-per-views, the ratings would hit record lows, which I have reported on, blaming Triple H for that, taking a proverbial blow to the head of Triple H, with this week being another proverbial blow to the head of Triple H, because he's what's wrong with the wrestling business. It's either that or the same 3 or 4 champions and 3 or 4 challengers all the time. Blame it on Triple H, blame it on WWE Creative, because that's what's going on here, and something really needs to be done with the kind of situation we are faced with, this debacle, which there seems to be no way out of. It's either Triple H, Stephanie, as principal owners and COOs, it's either Vince McMahon being too old to run the fucking show, or it's either the same 3 or 4 challengers and 3 or 4 champions all the time, going back and forth, sort of jockeying for position. Something needs to be done within the next 3 to 4 months, especially heading to an event like SummerSlam from New York, New Jersey. I shudder to think what kind of position we are going to be in. I have never been a Seth Rollins fan. I refuse to give Seth Rollins the benefit of the doubt. I will go as far to say that he's an extremely talented individual. I just don't appreciate how he runs down fans, how he forces us to believe that he is the future of the WWE, how he gets away with insulting celebrities who have ultimately done more in their careers than Seth Rollins ever has done, saying he could out-rap Wiz Khalifa, an individual who's recorded tracks with Maroon 5 and Miley Cyrus. I mean, give me a break. If you can go as far as Wiz Khalifa and achieve as much as one of the biggest rappers in the world, then I'll give you credit. If you can outperform somebody like Florida Georgia Line, I will give you credit. But having you week after week shooting on these celebrities, comparing yourselves on their level, is absolutely ridiculous, because if anybody is a celebrity, it's them. It's not Seth Rollins. Everybody knows, here's the fact, here's the legitimate statistic. Everybody knows that John Cena and Randy Orton are celebrities because of how much they've been promoted over the last 12 to 13 years. Nobody considers Seth Rollins, if you want to talk politics of professional wrestling for a minute, nobody considers Seth Rollins a celebrity, and nobody is ever going to consider Seth Rollins a celebrity. They're just going to consider Seth Rollins someone who is a mid-card individual, a mid-carder who is being used in matches to put over names like John Cena and Randy Orton. And the only reason he is champion is because the son of a bitch got lucky. He's not a celebrity, and he's not on the level of John Cena. Until he grants over 300 wishes in the way of a John Cena for the Make-A-Wish Foundation, then I might consider giving him the benefit of the doubt. Until he beats John Cena and Randy Orton week in and week out in the way of a CM Punk or an Undertaker, then I may give him the benefit of the doubt. But the son of a bitch has a long way to go, and he's a piece of shit for doing what he did, which is why I believe solely in my heart, in my soul of souls, that Seth Rollins is the future of WWE, only because he believes in his own mind that he is the future of WWE. And there are fans out there who will agree with me, and I know there are fans out there that will disagree with me, because you've watched Seth Rollins in companies like Ring of Honor, you've watched him on the independent level, you watched him in OVW, you watched him on NXT, you've watched him for years, so you're going to disagree with me because you're a diehard Seth Rollins fan, and I respect that about you. But I venture to say at least 75 to 80% of the wrestling population out there, the wrestling demographic out there who listen to this blog on my Facebook page at facebook.com/HEW Entertainment are going to choose to side with me, because they agree with the direction of the business not being in the direction they want it to head in. They want to see it in a more profitable direction. They want to see the Brock Lesnars, the Undertakers, the big shows. They want to see these big names, these legends, always on top. They want to see DX versus the NWO. I respect that about you, because you're a diehard wrestling fan, if you feel that way. You're even more diehard if you feel that way about Seth Rollins because you believe he should be given the benefit of the doubt. You believe his time is now. And I've said this about people like John Cena. I believe their time is up. I think it's time for Daniel Bryan. I think it's time for Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns to grab that proverbial brass ring. But it's the same 3 or 4 people getting that chance, taking that opportunity away from people like Daniel Bryan and Dean Ambrose who are never given the benefit of the doubt. An Intercontinental title reign and a U.S. title reign for Cena and Bryan do them no justice. And it's because Seth Rollins is always the man. He's always the fucking future. And he's only the future in his own mind because Triple H believes that he's the future of WWE. And I really believe this about Triple H. He makes wrestlers convinced. He makes them believe that he wants them to be what they want them to be. He makes them believe that they are the future of the business. He makes them believe they have so much potential. He convinces them enough. He shoves it in their faces enough that they actually are convinced and they believe that they are the future. They are the potential of this business. They are what this business is looking for. This is the most ridiculous thing since I heard about Tough Enough coming back, which is even more far-fetched. And he's going to lead them to believe they actually have potential. And I'll give these Tough Enough competitors at least 6 weeks in WWE before nothing is ever done with their character. I mean, whatever happened to the last Tough Enough winner? Did we ever see him on television? No, we didn't see him on television because he was led to believe something that wasn't legit. And the winner of this Tough Enough competition, this season of Tough Enough with new trainers and stuff, is going to be led down the road of the last winner and be led to believe the same thing, which is absolutely ridiculous. These are so far-fetched claims. And I really believe that Triple H just convinces people they have the potential and they can actually go the distance in the business when that's really not what's happening here. They are just being led down